This house is mine. I paid for it. Get out. You won't survive without me on your part-time wages. Ha ha ha. Henry sneers and gleefully unfolds the divorce papers. My name is Olivia and I'm 33 years old. Recently, I started working part-time at a nearby grocery store. I met Henry, my husband, at work. We got close, married 3 years ago, and I left my job soon after. Even though I wanted to continue working after marriage, Henry insisted that I become a homemaker. I reluctantly agreed, but couldn't shake off the desire to work again. After daily persuasion, Henry finally allowed me to work part-time. We want kids, but haven't been blessed yet. I wanted a pet and suggested getting a cat, but Henry hates them, so I gave up on the idea. Ever since I started working part-time, Henry criticizes everything I do. Did you go to work again today? The house is getting messy. Look at those wrinkled clothes. You're not keeping up with the chores. That's not true. I clean before going to work and the laundry is fine. What are you talking about? I've been managing everything perfectly. Henry retorts, the place looks dirty. Are you blind? And why is it always fried chicken? Can't you make something else? I don't make fried chicken that often. I try to vary our meals. I made your favorite fried chicken despite being short on time. I've prepared a variety of dishes. Henry doubles down when I push back. So, you're blaming your part-time job? Don't act so high and mighty. I earn enough for both of us. Do your chores properly and stop making excuses. It's embarrassing to see you work so hard for such a low wage. Henry always belittles me and my job. He wanted me to be a homemaker to maintain his image, not because we needed the money. He disapproves of my part-time job and takes every opportunity to mock me, asserting his financial superiority to unleash his verbal abuse. Even though he's my husband, I can't stand it when he degrades my work with harsh words. His words were ruining my mood every day. One day, we decided to go on a long-awaited drive to his parents' house. I had been irritated with him for a while, but I thought this outing would be a good break, so I was happy. At the time, I couldn't imagine that the visit to my in-laws would turn out the way it did. We drove for a few hours and finally arrived at his parents' home, where his mom was waiting for us. His mom, who lives alone, greeted us warmly. We had dinner prepared by her, and then my husband left to play poker. As his mom and I were doing the dishes, I noticed her demeanor change. She had been calm, but now her expression was stern. Wondering what was wrong, I made some coffee, and we sat down on the sofa. Then she spoke up. Olivia, Henry told me you've been working part-time. Why do you need to work when Henry has a good job? And it sounds like you're not taking care of the house because of it. I was taken aback by her sudden questions. No, that's not true. I'm doing my part-time at home. She widened her eyes dramatically. I heard everything from Henry about how poorly you keep the house. Lying won't help. Henry has been suffering alone. He comes home to a dirty house after a hard day's work. You're even failing at cooking decent meals. Quit your part-time job. No one at your workplace would even care if you left. Your job is to be a homemaker. Don't embarrass yourself as Henry's wife. She's an old-fashioned woman who got married right after school and has never worked outside the home. My husband also believes that's what a wife should be like. That's why they both dislike the idea of me working. But her words were too much. I felt devastated by her heartless comment that my job doesn't matter and that no one would miss me if I left. I find my part-time job rewarding and everyone there is nice. They treat me well and rely on me. Tears filled my eyes as I couldn't believe they thought so little of me. What shocked me even more was that my husband was talking badly about me behind my back. I do manage our home. Actually, because of my part-time job, I've been putting in more effort to manage the house well. I know my husband's job is tough, so I've been doing my best to support him. But to think that he and his mom were talking bad about me over the phone, I just couldn't believe it. I was quite depressed for a few days, but then I remembered my dad's face. Ever since Mom passed away, he's been living alone in our family home. I haven't seen him for a while because I've been busy. I felt like hearing his voice, so I called him. Usually, he picks up right away, but that day, the phone kept ringing. When I started to worry about why he wasn't picking up the phone, finally Dad answered. "Olivia, long time no see, how have you been?" Hearing Dad's calm voice, I felt relieved and tears started to flow. "What's going on? You didn't pick up for a while. Should I call back later if you are busy?" It seemed like Dad was out of breath. "No, sorry about that. I fell down the stairs recently and hurt my back. I can only move slowly right now, but it's nothing to worry about. I'll be fine soon. More importantly, is everything okay with you?" I was genuinely shocked. I couldn't believe that my athletic dad had fallen down the stairs and hurt his back. "No, I'm fine. Just please take it easy and get better soon. I'll come visit you before long." Though Dad kept saying he was fine, I started to worry. He's getting up there in age, and injuries could take a long time to heal. I had always taken his vitality for granted, but now I was anxious. Climbing stairs every day means there's always a chance he might trip and fall. On top of that, the stairs at my childhood home are pretty steep. The house is old, too, which means there are high steps leading into the entrance and bathroom. I became increasingly worried about Dad navigating the house while nursing his back. What if he seriously injured himself? I couldn't stand the thought. I had always wished to live closer, and now it seemed there was no time to hesitate. I made a significant decision to build a safer, more comfortable house for Dad near me. I had a hidden source of income that even my husband didn't know about. I had inherited an apartment business from my grandpa. Though technically it should belong to Dad, he had put it in my name for just-in-case scenarios. Dad always told me it's best not to talk about this, so even my husband doesn't know. I had saved all the rental income up until now. With that money, I could build Dad a new home. I've always been a worry for my dad, never really been able to give back to him. Now, I finally have a chance to give him the best gift of his life. The thought made my heart soar. However, building a new house would cost a significant amount, so I first needed my husband's understanding. I was on pins and needles, expecting another complaint and a big no. But instead, the response was, "You know, you might be right. Considering our age, maybe a new home is a better idea." Far from opposing, he graciously agreed. "Just don't come crying to me if you can't actually pull it off," he said, undermining me once again. Though it made me mad, I didn't want another fight, so I let it go. Now, the path was clear. I immediately started to search for reputable contractors and pushed ahead with the plans, though my husband didn't seem pleased. He didn't complain, but I could tell he wasn't fond of the idea. Then, one day, I was shocked when I went to the bank to withdraw money for groceries. $3,000 was missing from our account. I was shocked to see $3,000 missing from our joint account. I didn't remember spending that much money. There was only one person who could have done this. It was hard to believe my husband would take money without asking, but the reality was that the money was gone. That night, I confronted him. "Hey, I went to the bank today and $3,000 was withdrawn from our living expenses account. Do you know anything about this?" My husband smugly replied, "I gave it to my mom. You were talking about building a house, right? You must be stashing money somewhere. What's the big deal with $3,000? I couldn't believe my ears. "Why did you have to give her the money? It's not like my mother-in-law is broke. And that money is for our living expenses. You can't just give it away without asking me. That's totally unfair." My husband snapped back. "What do you know about my mom? She said she's struggling. What's wrong with a son helping his mother? Besides, I earned that money. What I do with it is none of your business. If you're upset, go earn your own money part-time. See, you've got nothing to say. don't ever complain about what I do again," he shouted and stormed out of the room. I had always believed that even if my husband had a bad temper, he wouldn't betray me. It would have been better if he had just discussed giving money to his mother with me. Perhaps there was another way, and this fight could have been avoided. Was it that he thought I would object? Or did he not trust me? I felt like our marriage was getting worse, not better. The next day, my husband acted like nothing had happened and went to work. I didn't want to argue anymore, but the bad feeling lingered. Finally, our new home was completed. Thanks to a helpful construction company, we managed to build a beautiful home. I had arranged for a moving company to help my dad with the packing. Everything seemed to be going well. With just 2 weeks left until the moving day, I was brimming with joy at the thought of honoring my parents in the home I built. The plan for the big day was to go to the new house with my husband to help my dad unpack. But when we sat down to discuss the day's schedule, my husband dropped an unbelievable bombshell. "Hold on, that house isn't for your dad. I'm giving it to my mom. I have the right to decide who lives there." I was stunned. "That house is for my dad. I built it." Rushing my words, he retorted, "You, working part-time, could never afford to build a house. I built that house with my money." He seemed to genuinely believe he had paid for the house. Was his agreement to build the house in the first place because he intended it for his mother, not my dad? His behavior was appalling. Now, I had to prove that the house was built with my money. I had no choice but to reveal the rental income I had been silently earning. When I told my husband about my decision, he didn't believe me. "You're making up a crazy story just to get the house the way you want it. Why not come up with a better lie while you're at it?" And no one believed me, so my husband stormed off somewhere. I didn't know what to do, but I figured the only option was to keep explaining until they understood. With that thought in mind, I anxiously awaited his return, and when he finally came back, he looked furious. Then he blurted out, "You are trying to scam me," he yelled. "Saying you built the house. That's my house. I built it. Pack your bags and get out. You won't survive on your part-time job salary. Ha ha ha." I was stunned, at a loss for words. It was too much, too fast. I had built that house, and being told to leave was shocking. "Sign this and be gone by tonight," my husband said, throwing the divorce papers on the table and walking away. His part was already filled out. After mocking me all this time, pushing a divorce paper in my face like I'm beneath him, that's just despicable. He must have done this awful act to bring me to despair. He probably thought that by bringing up divorce, I'd back down and let his mother move into our home. Sadly for him, I have enough income to sustain myself even without him. I reached my boiling point. I signed the divorce papers and left, heading to my dad's place with all my stuff. Dad was surprised but welcomed me warmly. "Come on in." After I told him everything, he patted me on the back. "Then let's live together in a new home. I'd be happier that way." He said just that. Moving day came and everything went smoothly, probably because my arrival sped up preparations. Although it felt eerie how my husband didn't make a fuss despite all his previous claims about the house being his, I tried not to think about it. Then, a few days into my new life with Dad, something unbelievable happened. Curious about the noise outside, I looked out the window. A moving truck had parked right in front of our house. Turns out, this is their new home. When I asked what was going on, I learned that my husband was the client and he'd be arriving with his mother soon. My dad and I already live in this house, and it looks like he's planning on moving in uninvited. We're already divorced, so he's practically a stranger now. We don't want him barging in. His pushy attitude creeped me out, so I told the movers to halt and rang up the police after consulting with my dad. After explaining the situation to the officers, they confirmed that not only did he have no right to live here, but even stepping foot inside against my will was illegal trespassing. Just then, my husband and mother-in-law strolled in, all relaxed. Upon seeing the police officer, they both started to panic and get flustered. It seemed like it finally dawned on my husband that I had built this house. But between a panicking mother-in-law at his side and a barrage of questions from the officer, he had already lost his composure. "Why can't I live here? What's going on?" He raised his voice, desperately trying to resist. Watching my husband act like that, I felt done dealing with him, but to protect me and my dad, I quietly handed my trump card to the police. Thanks to the cops, the situation was diffused. But he found himself in a pickle. He had already given up his apartment, so now he was stuck with a ton of belongings and nowhere to go. I was worried about my husband's repeated verbal abuse, or in other words, evidence of domestic violence. For quite some time, I couldn't stand his harsh words anymore. I'd planned to get back at him someday, so I installed surveillance cameras around the house and recorded everything. The footage showed me diligently doing housework and my husband relentlessly hurling unreasonable insults. Thanks to this evidence, I managed to corner him even further. I hired a lawyer and initiated a lawsuit, eventually securing a financial settlement in the divorce. My husband spent all his savings, the money from selling the family home and the settlement money on moving and compensating me. Now, it seems he's living in a rundown apartment with his mother. Word spread quickly at his workplace. Colleagues who noted something off about his character started to distance themselves, leaving him isolated and scorned by everyone in the company. As for me, I finally got the cat I've always wanted. Dad's back is much better now. And we are even talking about taking a trip with the cat. I also used the settlement money to start a business that sells cat-related products. While the initial phase had its ups and downs, the customer base has slowly grown and the business is doing well. Life is peaceful and genuinely enjoyable every day. I never thought the steps I took for Dad's well-being would also lead to my own happiness. I truly feel it was the right decision. And there's another recent development that's made me happy. There's a man who frequently visits my shop and always has delightful conversations with me. He is a wonderful person, kind to both people and cats. We've planned to go for a drive together soon. I'm going to live my life freely and joyfully. The anticipation of new happiness ahead has my heart soaring.